I was just the night assistant at DataSync Technologies when I stumbled upon the whiteboard that would change everything. Walking past the main conference room at 2 in the morning, I saw diagrams covering every inch of white surface. Sticky notes screamed failure. Red marker declared Project Titanium critical. 32 engineers couldn't solve this. Tomorrow morning meant presenting to Meridian Global Industries. $200 million hung in the balance. 800 jobs faced elimination. The pattern recognition algorithm had a flaw so obvious it made my heart race. 6 months earlier, I had graduated summa cum laude from University of Texas with degrees in computer science and applied mathematics. The celebration felt hollow, though, because reality hit hard. Student loans totaled $87,000. My younger brother Tyler needed money for medical school. Mom's cancer treatments drained our savings faster than I could calculate compound interest. While classmates landed engineering positions at Google and Microsoft, I took the first job offer that came my way, administrative assistant at DataSync Technologies, paid $38,000 annually, plus health benefits. The salary barely covered my family obligations, but it kept us afloat while I searched for something better. DataSync operated with a military precision when it came to hierarchy. Chief Technology Officer Bradley Patterson made sure everyone understood their place. Engineers occupied the 32nd floor in gleaming offices with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Austin. Administrative staff worked in cubicles on the 29th floor, separated by 3 floors of deliberate distance. During my first week, lead engineer James Morrison explained the unspoken rules. Administrative personnel handled filing, scheduling, and basic maintenance. Technical decisions flowed exclusively through department heads. Support staff should focus on supporting, nothing more. The culture reinforced this separation daily. Engineers wore jeans and startup-branded hoodies. Administrative assistants dressed business casual. Engineers had access to development servers and confidential project files. We maintained spreadsheets and ordered office supplies. Project Titanium represented DataSync's most ambitious undertaking. The contract with Meridian Global Industries required developing data compression technology that reduced file sizes by 75% while maintaining perfect integrity. Meridian managed massive datasets across global networks spanning 43 countries. Traditional compression failed at enterprise scale. Bradley Patterson had personally sold Meridian executives on DataSync's capabilities during a presentation in New York. He promised revolutionary algorithms that would transform how multinational corporations handled data storage and transmission. The contract outlined specific performance benchmarks with severe penalties for failure. For 4 months, the engineering team pursued Patterson's vision relentlessly. They tried 37 different approaches, each more complex than the last. The algorithm worked beautifully on small datasets, achieving compression rates that exceeded expectations. Problems emerged when processing files larger than 10 gigabytes. Memory overflow crashed the system consistently. Compression ratios plummeted to 20%, making the technology commercially worthless. Engineers worked 18-hour days debugging recursive loops and optimizing memory allocation. Nothing worked. That Tuesday night, alone in the conference room, I studied the whiteboard diagrams with growing excitement. My graduate algorithms coursework had covered exactly this type of problem. The solution involved dynamic programming principles that eliminated recursive bottlenecks entirely. I grabbed a red marker and began sketching my approach in the corner space. Hash tables combined with binary trees could handle memory management elegantly. 14 lines of code would implement the core functionality. The mathematical beauty of the solution made my hands shake with anticipation. Security guard Frank Williams entered the room while I was writing. His flashlight beam caught me mid-equation marker raised toward the whiteboard. Frank had worked building security for 12 years and took protocol seriously. Administrative staff aren't authorized for technical areas after hours, he announced firmly. His radio crackled with dispatcher chatter. This constitutes tampering with confidential engineering documentation. Panic flooded my system. I dropped the marker and frantically erased my work with my sleeve. Chalk dust and ink smeared across my blazer as I scrambled to remove evidence of my unauthorized contribution. I was just checking if the room needed cleaning supplies, I stammered, backing toward the door. Maintenance reported marker shortages on this floor. Frank's expression softened slightly, but his duty remained clear. Company policy prohibits non-technical personnel from accessing project materials. I'll need to file an incident report if this happens again. I fled the conference room and spent the rest of my shift wondering if I should have stood my ground. The solution seemed so obvious, so achievable. But crossing departmental boundaries could cost me the job my family depended on. The next morning, Patterson's team presented their latest attempt to Meridian executives. I watched through the glass walls as the demonstration crashed spectacularly. Error messages cascaded across presentation screens while 25 people sat in uncomfortable silence. Meridian CEO Helen Rodriguez maintained diplomatic composure, but her disappointment was obvious. Chief Technology Officer Michael Thompson shook his head repeatedly during the technical explanation. The compression software froze their entire system, requiring a hard restart that consumed precious presentation time. DataSync has 1 week to deliver a functional solution, Rodriguez announced as her team packed briefcases. Our board has approved backup negotiations with Innovate Tech Solutions. We cannot delay implementation indefinitely. After Meridian departed, Patterson gathered his engineers for an emergency meeting. Through the conference room glass, I watched him pace frantically while pointing at whiteboard diagrams. James Morrison took notes furiously. Sarah Chen nodded grimly at whatever instructions Patterson delivered. The weight of missed opportunity crushed my chest. I possessed the technical knowledge to solve their problem, but company culture demanded I remain silent. The gap between my capabilities and my role felt insurmountable. Wednesday morning brought devastating news that rippled through DataSync like an earthquake. CEO Amanda Richardson called an emergency all-hands meeting in the main auditorium. 800 employees packed into seats designed for 600, with overflow crowds standing along the walls. Richardson's message was brutally direct. Without the Meridian contract, DataSync faced bankruptcy within 3 months. The company had invested heavily in Project Titanium development, neglecting other revenue streams. Payroll obligations exceeded current assets by 40%. If we cannot deliver a working solution by next Tuesday, Richardson announced, we will be forced to eliminate 60% of our workforce immediately. Administrative departments will be the first to close. My stomach dropped as the implications crystallized. Losing this job meant defaulting on Tyler's medical school tuition. His semester cost $22,000 due in 6 weeks. Without my income, he would have to withdraw from classes and lose his place in the program. Mom's experimental cancer treatment added another layer of financial pressure. Insurance covered basic chemotherapy, but the cutting-edge immunotherapy that offered her best survival chances cost $18,000 per cycle. She needed 3 cycles minimum. The mathematics of our family's financial situation allowed no margin for error. Every paycheck was already allocated before I earned it. Unemployment would create a cascade of consequences that could destroy Tyler's future and threaten Mom's life. Thursday night, I stayed late under the pretense of organizing files in the engineering archive room. This legitimate task gave me access to Project Titanium's complete technical documentation. For 3 hours, I studied algorithm specifications, performance benchmarks, and failure analysis reports. The engineering team had pursued increasingly complex approaches based on Patterson's insistence that proprietary DataSync libraries provided competitive advantages. Every solution attempted to build upon existing code frameworks rather than starting fresh. Their fundamental mistake became clear as I reviewed failure patterns. The recursive approach created exponential memory requirements that no amount of optimization could resolve. They were trying to make an inherently flawed design work faster when they needed a completely different architecture. Friday evening, I implemented my solution on my personal laptop using open-source development tools. The 14-line algorithm combined hash table lookups with binary tree traversal to eliminate memory bottlenecks entirely. My approach avoided recursion by processing data in fixed-size chunks that never exceeded available memory. Testing began with small files to verify basic functionality. 1 megabyte files compressed to 240 kilobytes while maintaining perfect data integrity. Processing speed exceeded Patterson's algorithm by 300%. Saturday night, I accessed the DataSync development servers using my administrative credentials. Night shift support staff had read-only access for troubleshooting user issues, which allowed me to upload test files without modifying production systems. My algorithm handled 10 gigabyte files flawlessly, achieving 78% compression. With zero errors, 20 gigabyte files processed in 18 minutes versus 4 hours for Patterson's approach. 50 gigabyte datasets compressed without memory overflow warnings. Sunday afternoon brought the breakthrough that changed everything. I tested my solution on Meridian sample datasets which Patterson's team had never successfully processed. My algorithm achieved 81% compression on their largest files, while completing the operation in 22 minutes. The results exceeded every specification in the Meridian contract by significant margins. Processing speed compression ratios, memory efficiency, and data integrity all surpassed minimum requirements. This wasn't just a working solution, it was a revolutionary advancement. But Sunday evening also brought devastating news that shattered my growing confidence. I overheard Patterson on a conference call with Meridian executives, lying about the team's progress with shameless audacity. "Our breakthrough is imminent," Patterson declared through the speakerphone. "Minor calibration issues have been resolved. Tuesday's demonstration will showcase technology that exceeds your wildest expectations." The reality was starkly different. Patterson's team remained stuck with the same failed approaches they had pursued for months. They were no closer to a solution than they had been 6 weeks earlier. Worse, I discovered Patterson had been deliberately suppressing alternative approaches suggested by junior engineers. David Kumar had proposed memory management techniques similar to my solution 3 weeks earlier. Patterson dismissed the idea without investigation, claiming it lacked enterprise-grade sophistication. Sarah Chen had identified the recursive bottleneck during a team meeting in April. Patterson overruled her recommendation to explore non-recursive alternatives, insisting that DataSync's proprietary frameworks provided unmatched performance advantages. The pattern revealed Patterson's true priority, protecting his reputation as DataSync's technical visionary rather than solving the actual problem. He had staked his career on his architectural choices and refused to consider alternatives that might expose his mistakes. I spent Sunday night wrestling with an impossible moral dilemma. Remaining silent meant watching DataSync fail and 800 people lose their jobs. Speaking up risked exposing my unauthorized access to confidential systems and guaranteed retaliation from Patterson. Tyler called at 11:30 p.m. to discuss his upcoming semester schedule. His excitement about advanced cardiology courses and clinical rotations made my chest tight with anxiety. How could I explain that his dreams might end because I was too scared to challenge company hierarchy? Mom's voice sounded weaker during our Tuesday phone call. The current chemotherapy cycle was leaving her exhausted and nauseous. She tried to hide her symptoms, but I could hear the pain she was trying to spare me from worrying about. The weight of their dependence on my income made the decision feel impossible. But as I watched Patterson's team through the conference room glass, frantically attempting the same failed approaches that had consumed 4 months already, I realized silence was no longer an option. Saturday arrived with the desperate energy of a team running out of time and options. I arrived for my regular weekend shift to find the engineering floor buzzing with activity, despite the normally quiet atmosphere. Through the glass conference room walls, I could see Patterson's entire team hunched over laptops and scattered across whiteboards, covered in increasingly frantic calculations. James Morrison had dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. His usually pressed shirts were wrinkled and coffee stains marked his khaki pants. He had been in the office for 36 straight hours, subsisting on energy drinks and determination. Sarah Chen worked through what was obviously a fever. Her face was flushed, and she kept pausing to steady herself against the conference table. When colleagues suggested she go home to rest, she shook her head stubbornly and returned to her laptop screen. David Kumar's marriage was showing visible strain from the pressure. His wife had called the office 4 times during my shift, each conversation growing more heated. Through the glass walls, I could see him gesturing apologetically, while she expressed frustration about missed family dinners and broken promises. The whiteboard told the story of their mounting desperation. Previous attempts were crossed out with increasing force, leaving deep indentations in the white surface. New diagrams appeared and disappeared within hours as each approach failed. Sticky notes with messages like, "Nothing works," and "We're screwed," accumulated like fallen leaves. Sunday evening brought a phone call that changed everything. Mom's oncologist, Dr. Patricia Hernandez, delivered news that made my hands shake as I held the phone. "The current chemotherapy protocol isn't achieving the response we hoped for," Dr. Hernandez explained with gentle professionalism. "We need to transition to the experimental immunotherapy treatment we discussed earlier." The cost was staggering. $18,000 per cycle, with insurance covering only basic diagnostic tests. Mom needed 3 cycles minimum, potentially more, depending on her response. Without my job's health insurance and steady income, the treatment was financially impossible. "How long do we have to make this decision?" I asked, already knowing the answer would be insufficient. "Ideally, we would begin the first cycle within 2 weeks," Dr. Hernandez replied. "Delaying treatment reduces effectiveness significantly. The cancer is progressing faster than we anticipated." Sunday night, I entered the conference room one final time. The whiteboard showed complete chaos that reflected the team's psychological state. Conflicting diagrams overlapped in confusing tangles. Mathematical formulas were scratched out with such violence that the marker had torn through to the white surface underneath. In the center, someone had written, "Monday presentation doomed," in large red letters. Below that, a smaller note read, 32 engineers, 4 months, 0 solutions. Patterson's final attempt covered the right side of the board. The approach was essentially the same recursive algorithm that had failed consistently, with minor modifications that wouldn't address the fundamental memory overflow problem. His team would walk into Tuesday's presentation with a solution they already knew wouldn't work. At 3 in the morning, with the building empty, except for security guards, I made the most important decision of my professional life. I erased a small section of the whiteboard and wrote my 14-line solution clearly in the corner. Above the code, I wrote, "Try this approach," and signed it with C, followed by my extension number. My handwriting looked small and uncertain compared to the bold engineering diagrams surrounding it, but the mathematical elegance of the solution spoke for itself. Walking away from the conference room, I felt simultaneously terrified and relieved. The choice was made. Tuesday would bring either vindication or disaster, but I would no longer carry the weight of knowing I could have helped and choosing silence instead. Monday morning arrived with the crushing weight of finality. I reached my desk at 8 a.m., exactly as I had for 6 months, but everything felt different. Through the conference room glass, I watched engineers file in for their final preparation meeting before the 10 a.m. Meridian presentation. The discovery happened at 8:32 a.m. James Morrison's voice carried through the glass walls, despite the closed door. "Wait!" he shouted, pointing at the whiteboard corner. "Look at this! Where did this come from?" The entire team crowded around my code segment like archaeologists examining a newly discovered artifact. Sarah Chen read each line aloud, while David Kumar frantically checked the mathematical logic. Their excitement was palpable as they realized the algorithm avoided the memory management problems that had plagued their efforts. "This could actually work," Morrison announced, his voice cracking with exhaustion and hope. "The hash table approach eliminates recursion entirely. Binary tree traversal prevents memory overflow. This is brilliant!" With 58 minutes until the Meridian presentation, the team split into 2 groups. Half began implementing my algorithm while the others prepared backup slides in case the new approach failed. The conference room transformed into controlled chaos as engineers typed furiously and tested code segments. At 9:15 a.m., Bradley Patterson stormed into the conference room like a hurricane making landfall. He had been in meetings with CEO Richardson and legal counsel discussing damage control strategies for the expected failure. Seeing his team working on unfamiliar code triggered an immediate explosion of rage. "What is this?" he demanded, pointing at my algorithm on the whiteboard. Who authorized this deviation from our approved approach? Morrison tried to explain the potential breakthrough, but Patterson's fury overwhelmed rational discussion. The CTO recognized immediately that this code wasn't produced by his team. Rather than celebrating a possible solution, he became consumed with protecting his authority. "Remove this unauthorized garbage immediately," Patterson ordered. "We proceed with my algorithm as planned. I will not have this project contaminated by amateur interference from unknown sources." The room fell silent as engineers faced an impossible choice: follow Patterson's orders and fail spectacularly in front of Meridian executives, or risk their careers by defying the CTO's direct command. Morrison looked at his colleagues with desperate eyes. Sarah Chen clutched her laptop containing successful test results from my algorithm. David Kumar stared at the whiteboard, knowing they were about to throw away their only chance at success. The clock showed 9:37 a.m. In 23 minutes, Meridian executives would arrive, expecting a demonstration of technology that could transform their global operations. Patterson's failed algorithm awaited, while my working solution sat abandoned in the corner. At precisely 10 a.m., the elevator doors opened to reveal Meridian Global Industries' executive team. CEO Helen Rodriguez emerged first, her navy blue suit and confident stride commanding immediate attention. Behind her, CTO Michael Thompson carried a leather portfolio thick with technical specifications. Head of Technology Acquisition, Lisa Park, completed the group tablet in hand and an expression that suggested this was their final evaluation. They had flown from New York specifically for this presentation. DataSync represented 4 months of due diligence site visits and technical reviews. Rodriguez had personally championed the partnership during Meridian board meetings, staking her reputation on DataSync's capabilities. DataSync's leadership filled the conference room to capacity. CEO Amanda Richardson sat at the head of the table, flanked by department heads, trying to project confidence they clearly didn't feel. Bradley Patterson occupied center stage with the presentation remote, his earlier rage replaced by artificial calm. "Welcome to DataSync Technologies," Richardson began with practiced professionalism. "Today's demonstration represents months of intensive development. Our team has created compression technology that will revolutionize how global enterprises manage data." Patterson took control with supreme confidence, dismissing the previous week's technical difficulties as minor calibration issues that served to perfect our revolutionary algorithm. His presentation slides were polished and compelling, filled with charts and benchmarks that painted an optimistic picture. The opening demonstration used a carefully selected dataset of 3 gigabytes. Patterson's algorithm performed adequately within this limited scope, achieving 62% compression in 14 minutes. The processing completed without errors, and the compressed files maintained perfect data integrity. Meridian executives nodded politely, but remained skeptical. Thompson made notes about processing speed and compression ratios. Park asked technical questions about scalability and real-world applications. "This is impressive for smaller datasets," Rodriguez acknowledged diplomatically. However, Meridian's typical files range from 20 to 50 gigabytes. Our global network transmits terabytes daily across 43 countries. Can your algorithm handle enterprise-scale operations? Patterson's confidence never wavered as he agreed to demonstrate larger datasets. He selected a 20-gigabyte file containing mixed data types that closely resembled Meridian's actual use cases. The compression process began with normal status indicators. Within 3 minutes, warning messages appeared on the presentation screen. Memory allocation errors multiplied faster than Patterson could close the dialog boxes. The compression ratio plummeted from 60% to 30%, then 15%, while processing speed crawled to a halt. At 7 minutes, the algorithm crashed completely. The presentation system displayed a blue screen error message, while the conference room fell into uncomfortable silence. 800 gigabytes of system memory had been consumed before the failure, leaving the entire computer frozen. Patterson frantically attempted to restart the demonstration while making excuses about temporary system conflicts and suboptimal testing conditions. His explanations grew more desperate as technical reboot procedures failed to restore functionality. Michael Thompson shook his head with obvious disappointment. As Meridian's CTO, he understood exactly what the failure meant. The algorithm suffered from fundamental architectural problems that no amount of optimization could resolve. Helen Rodriguez stood from her chair with decisive finality. "We have seen enough," she announced, her tone professional, but unmistakably disappointed. "Meridian cannot proceed with a solution that fails under realistic conditions." Lisa Park mentioned that they had already begun preliminary discussions with Innovate Tech Solutions, DataSync's primary competitor. The subtext was clear. Meridian had backup options and wouldn't wait indefinitely for DataSync to solve problems they should have resolved months earlier. Richardson leaped from her seat in desperate panic. "Please give us one more opportunity," she pleaded. "Our team has been working around the clock. They're on the verge of a breakthrough that will exceed all your expectations." Rodriguez remained unmoved. "Amanda, we have invested 6 months in this partnership. Our implementation timeline cannot accommodate further delays. Meridian's board expects solutions, not promises." As Meridian executives moved toward the conference room door, their body language communicated complete dismissal. Thompson packed his portfolio with papers he wouldn't need. Park was already typing on her tablet, presumably updating Innovate Tech contact information. The moment stretched like a held breath. 800 DataSync employees faced unemployment. Months of development effort approached worthless conclusion. Patterson's reputation and Richardson's leadership hung in the balance of this failed demonstration. James Morrison broke protocol in an act of professional courage that changed everything. Standing abruptly from his chair, he called out desperately, "Wait, please wait. There's something else we need to show you." Every eye in the room turned toward Morrison. Patterson's face flushed with anger at the unauthorized interruption. Richardson looked confused but hopeful that someone might salvage the situation. "We discovered a potential solution late last night," Morrison continued, his voice gaining strength. "Someone found a way to solve the memory overflow problem. The algorithm works perfectly on large datasets." Patterson exploded with fury that shattered the professional atmosphere. "Morrison, you are completely out of line!" he screamed. "There is no alternative solution. You're desperately trying to salvage your own reputation with fantasy claims." The accusation hung in the air, while Meridian executives paused at the door, uncertain whether they were witnessing a legitimate technical breakthrough or interpersonal drama. Rodriguez looked to Richardson for clarification. "Do you have a working solution or not?" Rodriguez asked directly, her patience clearly exhausted. "We cannot waste more time on speculation and internal conflicts." The room divided visibly between engineers who knew about my algorithm and executives who remained ignorant of the morning's discoveries. Morrison looked to his colleagues for support, while Patterson continued threatening immediate termination for insubordination. Richardson demanded an immediate explanation of what was happening. The tension was unbearable as careers and company survival balanced on the edge of revelation or concealment. James Morrison made a decision that would define the rest of his career. Walking deliberately to the whiteboard, he pointed at my 14-line code segment tucked in the corner between Patterson's failed diagrams. "This algorithm solves every problem we've encountered," Morrison announced to the stunned room. "Look at the approach. Hash tables eliminate recursive memory allocation. Binary tree traversal prevents overflow conditions. The mathematical elegance is extraordinary." Sarah Chen moved to support Morrison despite her fever symptoms. Opening her laptop, she displayed test results that made Meridian executives lean forward with renewed interest. "We implemented this code this morning," she explained. 78% compression on 50 gigabyte files, processing time reduced by 400%, 0 errors across multiple data types. The numbers were undeniable. Thompson examined Chen's screen while Park took notes frantically. Rodriguez's expression shifted from resignation to curiosity as she processed the implications of what she was seeing. Patterson's response revealed the depth of his professional insecurity. Rather than acknowledging the potential breakthrough, he attacked the solution's legitimacy with increasingly desperate arguments. "This is amateur hour nonsense. Patterson declared, gesturing dismissively at the whiteboard. Untested code from unknown sources. My team is engaging in conspiracy against established protocols. His accusations grew more specific and more damaging to his credibility. Patterson claimed the alternative algorithm was dangerous experimental garbage that could corrupt Meridian's data systems. He insisted only his thoroughly vetted approach deserved consideration. Richardson's patience reached its breaking point. As CEO, she needed answers immediately. I want to know exactly where this code originated, she commanded. Who wrote these 14 lines? Someone in this room needs to explain what's happening. The conference room fell silent, except for air conditioning humming and distant traffic noise from 32 floors below. Engineers exchanged glances that communicated years of frustration with Patterson's leadership. Meridian executives waited with growing impatience. Helen Rodriguez became intrigued by the technical elegance she observed. Despite the interpersonal drama, she recognized sophisticated algorithm design when she encountered it. Michael, she said to her CTO, what's your assessment of this approach? Thompson studied the whiteboard for several minutes, tracing through the logical flow with his finger. His background included advanced computer science degrees and 15 years of enterprise software development. The solution impressed him immediately. The algorithm is brilliantly conceived, Thompson admitted reluctantly. It addresses every architectural flaw in the previous attempts. Hash table implementation is textbook perfect. Memory management eliminates bottlenecks entirely. His technical validation carried enormous weight. If Meridian's CTO endorsed the approach, Patterson's dismissive attacks lost all credibility. The solution's mathematical foundation was solid regardless of its mysterious origins. Patterson recognized his authority dissolving in real time. Cornered and desperate, he made a fatal tactical error that exposed his fundamental dishonesty. Actually, he announced with artificial confidence, I developed this 14-line solution myself as a backup approach. The contradiction was immediate and devastating. Morrison's jaw dropped with disbelief. Chen stared at Patterson as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Even Richardson appeared shocked by the transparent lie. You were just calling it amateur garbage, Morrison pointed out with growing courage. 3 minutes ago, you demanded we remove it from the whiteboard. Now, you're claiming credit for developing it. Patterson's response revealed the extent of his desperation. He claimed he had developed the algorithm over weeks as a contingency solution, but hadn't authorized its implementation because his team deployed it without proper approval protocols. The explanation satisfied nobody and raised additional questions. If Patterson had developed a working solution weeks earlier, why did he present the failed algorithm to Meridian? Why did he order its removal from the whiteboard? Why did he claim no alternative solutions existed? Sarah Chen delivered the killing blow to Patterson's credibility. The test results on my laptop are time-stamped this morning, she announced, showing the screen to the room. Implementation began at 8:45 a.m. The code was discovered, not developed over time. Richardson's executive assistant quietly entered the room and whispered something urgent in the CEO's ear. Richardson nodded grimly and addressed the group with new information. Building security has reviewed camera footage from the weekend, Richardson announced. Someone was working in this conference room during off hours. We need to identify who had unauthorized access to Project Titanium materials. Frank Williams entered the conference room reluctantly, his security uniform and serious expression commanding attention. As head of building security, he had reviewed the surveillance footage at Richardson's request. Camera systems show a person entering this room multiple times between Friday night and Sunday morning, Williams reported. The individual appeared to be studying whiteboard materials and making modifications. Image quality makes identification difficult. The mystery deepened as everyone processed this information. Meridian executives watched the unfolding drama with fascination rather than frustration. The technical solution had captured their interest, but the human story behind it was equally compelling. Richardson asked the question that hung in everyone's mind. Whoever wrote this algorithm needs to identify themselves immediately. This solution could save our company and 800 jobs. I need to know who my real problem solver is. The room held its collective breath as the truth balanced on the edge of revelation. Through the glass conference room walls, I could see everything unfolding. My heart pounded as I realized the moment had arrived when my secret contribution could no longer remain hidden. Standing at my desk outside the conference room, I understood that my choice in the next 30 seconds would determine not only my future, but the futures of everyone I cared about. Tyler's medical school dreams, Mom's cancer treatment, 800 DataSync employees' livelihoods, all waited for someone to step forward and claim responsibility. From my desk outside the conference room, every word penetrated the glass walls with crystal clarity. My hands trembled as I watched 40 of the most powerful people in the company staring at each other in tense silence. CEO Richardson had just asked who wrote the algorithm that could save DataSync from bankruptcy. The internal battle raging in my chest felt like warfare between fear and responsibility. I was 26 years old, an administrative assistant facing a room filled with executives, senior engineers, and corporate decision-makers whose combined salaries exceeded $2 million annually. My mind raced through every possible consequence of revealing myself. Patterson would retaliate with vicious determination. Company policy violations could result in immediate termination. The financial support my family depended on would vanish overnight. Tyler's voice echoed in my memory from our last conversation. His excitement about advanced cardiology coursework and upcoming clinical rotations. The acceptance letter from Johns Hopkins for his residency application. Dreams that required 18 more months of tuition payments. Mom's condition added urgency that made my chest tight with anxiety. Dr. Hernandez had emphasized that delaying immunotherapy treatment reduced survival chances significantly. $18,000 per cycle, 3 cycles minimum. Without my job's insurance coverage, the treatment became financially impossible. But watching Patterson's lies unfold through the glass walls, I realized that silence was no longer an ethical option. 800 employees faced unemployment because their CTO prioritized protecting his reputation over solving technical problems. The company was failing because innovation was being suppressed by institutional arrogance. Taking the deepest breath of my life, I stood from my desk chair. My legs felt unsteady as I walked the 15 steps to the conference room door. Through the glass, I could see Thompson examining my code on the whiteboard, while Rodriguez checked her watch impatiently. Opening the door felt like stepping across a threshold into a completely different version of my life. Every head in the room turned toward me with expressions ranging from confusion to irritation. Who was this administrative assistant interrupting their critical meeting? "Excuse me," I began, my voice starting as barely more than a whisper. The words caught in my throat as 40 pairs of eyes focused on me with uncomfortable intensity. Richardson looked puzzled by my intrusion. "Chloe, we're in the middle of an important presentation," she said with barely contained frustration. "Whatever administrative issue you're dealing with needs to wait." I cleared my throat and tried again, this time with more volume, but still shaking with nerves. "I wrote that code," I announced, pointing at the whiteboard corner. "Those 14 lines are mine." The silence that followed was deafening. Patterson's face cycled through confusion, recognition, and horror as he processed what I had just revealed. Morrison stared at me as if I had just declared I was from another planet. Rodriguez and Thompson exchanged glances that suggested they weren't sure whether to take me seriously. Patterson recovered first, launching into dismissive laughter that carried obvious cruelty. "This is ridiculous," he announced to the room. "An administrative assistant claiming to solve problems that stumped 32 engineers with advanced degrees. She's clearly having some kind of breakdown." His attack felt like physical blows, but I had committed to this path and couldn't retreat now. "I have a computer science degree from University of Texas," I replied, my voice gaining strength. "Summa cum laude. I specialized in algorithms and data structures with graduate-level coursework in computational complexity theory." Richardson's expression shifted from irritation to genuine surprise. She had hired me based on administrative qualifications and had never seen my complete academic transcript. The revelation that her night assistant possessed advanced technical credentials clearly caught her off guard. Why didn't you mention your background during the hiring process? Richardson asked with obvious confusion. We had engineering positions available when you started. The explanation felt too personal for this professional setting, but honesty demanded complete transparency. Student loan debt totaled $87,000, I admitted. My brother needed money for medical school. My mother's cancer treatments required immediate income. I couldn't afford to wait for the right position. Patterson interrupted with another wave of dismissive attacks. Credentials don't matter, he declared. Even if she has a degree, this algorithm is simplistic amateur work that ignores enterprise complexity. She has no understanding of real-world implementation challenges. His challenge provided the opening I needed to demonstrate actual competence, rather than just claiming it. Walking to the whiteboard, I picked up a red marker with hands that had stopped shaking. The current approach fails because recursive loops create exponential memory requirements. I began pointing to Patterson's diagrams. Each recursion level doubles memory allocation, leading to overflow conditions on datasets exceeding available RAM. I moved to my algorithm section and began explaining the solution, step by step. Hash tables provide constant time lookup without recursive overhead. Binary tree traversal processes data in fixed-size chunks that never exceed memory limits. Dynamic programming principles eliminate redundant calculations. As I continued the technical explanation, my confidence grew with each concept I articulated clearly. Years of studying these exact problems had prepared me for this moment. The mathematical elegance of the solution spoke for itself. Thompson began asking sophisticated questions about scalability and optimization. His queries tested deep understanding of algorithmic complexity and enterprise implementation requirements. I answered each question without hesitation, drawing additional diagrams to illustrate advanced concepts. How does your approach handle concurrent processing? Thompson inquired. Meridian systems require parallel compression across multiple data streams simultaneously. I sketched thread-safe implementation details that addressed his concerns completely. Lock-free data structures prevent bottlenecks during parallel execution. Each processing thread maintains independent hash tables while sharing read-only binary tree references. Rodriguez and Park exchanged meaningful glances as they recognized genuine technical expertise in action. What had begun as Patterson's attempt to humiliate me was transforming into my professional vindication. Patterson's desperation grew more obvious as his technical objections were systematically refuted. He began making increasingly wild claims about enterprise security requirements and corporate compliance standards that my amateur solution allegedly ignored. Each attack revealed gaps in his own understanding, while my responses demonstrated comprehensive knowledge of industry best practices. The power dynamic in the room was shifting visibly as Meridian executives recognized who actually understood the technology they needed. This is exactly what we've been looking for, Rodriguez told Thompson quietly. Someone who can explain complex concepts clearly and demonstrate real expertise under pressure. Richardson watched the exchange with growing amazement and what appeared to be embarrassment. Her administrative assistant was conducting graduate-level technical discussions with Meridian's CTO, while her highly paid engineering director made increasingly desperate excuses. The moment of truth had arrived. My secret was completely exposed, my technical competence fully demonstrated. Patterson's credibility lay in ruins around us. 800 jobs hung in the balance, while Meridian executives evaluated whether DataSync possessed the talent to deliver what they needed. Helen Rodriguez took control of the room with executive decisiveness that cut through the interpersonal drama. I want to see this algorithm tested on our actual datasets immediately, she announced. If it performs as claimed, we proceed with contract negotiations today. Thompson provided Meridian's most challenging test files via secure transfer. The datasets included mixed data types, encrypted segments, and compression-resistant formats that had broken every previous solution they evaluated. File sizes ranged from 25 to 100 gigabytes. Sarah Chen implemented my algorithm on DataSync's fastest development servers, while the entire room watched in tense silence. The first test file began processing immediately with status indicators, showing steady progress without warning messages. 18 minutes later, the results appeared on screen. 100 GB dataset compressed to 19 gigabytes with zero data corruption. Processing speed exceeded Patterson's algorithm by 600% while using 70% less memory. The compression ratio of 81% surpassed every requirement in the original contract specifications. Thompson stared at the results in amazement. "This is revolutionary," he admitted, running additional verification tests. Perfect data integrity, exceptional compression ratios, enterprise-scale performance. This exceeds our most optimistic projections. Rodriguez made the decision that changed everything. Meridian not only proceeds with the original contract, she announced. We want to expand implementation across additional business units. $300 million over 7 years for exclusive licensing rights. The number hit the room like lightning. DataSync's original contract was worth $200 million. Rodriguez was offering 50% more, based on witnessing superior technology that solved problems Meridian hadn't even articulated yet. Richardson's joy was visible and immediate. The expanded contract secured DataSync's financial future and guaranteed employment for every current employee, plus room for significant expansion. The company's stock price would triple when news reached investors. But Rodriguez wasn't finished with her announcements. Turning to face me directly, she delivered recognition that felt surreal. Meridian wants to establish a consulting relationship with the engineer who developed this breakthrough. We have additional compression challenges that could benefit from this level of innovation. Patterson's world collapsed in real time as the magnitude of his failures became undeniable. Not only had he nearly destroyed DataSync through arrogance and technical incompetence, but he had actively suppressed the solution that saved the company. Richardson's response was swift and decisive. Bradley Patterson is terminated immediately, she announced to the room. Security will escort him from the building within the hour. His leadership nearly cost us our most important client and 800 jobs. Patterson's attempts to argue or explain were cut short by Richardson's finality. Years of corporate politics and bureaucratic protection meant nothing when results spoke so clearly. His reputation in the technology industry was destroyed beyond recovery. Richardson turned to me with an expression mixing gratitude, embarrassment, and professional respect. "Chloe, I formally apologize for DataSync's failure to recognize your capabilities," she said publicly. "Effective immediately, you are promoted to senior algorithm developer with full engineering privileges." The salary adjustment was breathtaking. My new position paid $95,000 annually, plus equity shares that would vest over 4 years. The signing bonus alone covered Tyler's remaining tuition and Mom's complete immunotherapy treatment. Morrison received his own promotion to Director of Innovation, leading a new team focused on breakthrough algorithm development. Sarah Chen became Vice President of Engineering Development, overseeing technical implementation across all projects. David Kumar joined the senior leadership team as Chief Architect. The personal impact felt overwhelming as financial pressures that had consumed my thoughts for months simply evaporated. Tyler could complete medical school without debt worries. Mom's experimental treatment was fully funded with the best oncology specialists available. 6 months later, Project Titanium had become the industry standard for enterprise data compression. Technology publications featured cover stories about the administrative assistant who revolutionized data science. Job offers arrived weekly from major corporations across Silicon Valley. But the most meaningful change was DataSync's cultural transformation. Richardson implemented comprehensive policies ensuring technical contributions were evaluated based on merit rather than job titles or department hierarchies. The company established programs supporting all employees in pursuing professional development. I chose to remain at DataSync rather than accepting external offers. My experience had taught me the value of workplace cultures that nurture talent regardless of its source. Leading a team of brilliant engineers who respected innovation over politics felt more rewarding than any salary increase. Tyler thrived in medical school, earning top rankings in his cardiology coursework. His acceptance into Johns Hopkins' residency program fulfilled dreams that had seemed impossible just months earlier. He frequently credited his success to having financial security that allowed complete focus on studies. Mom's immunotherapy treatment exceeded every expectation. Her cancer went into complete remission after the second cycle with follow-up tests showing no detectable disease. Dr. Hernandez called her recovery remarkable and attributed success partly to reduced stress about financial concerns. The final validation came when Meridian expanded their relationship with DataSync again, commissioning additional algorithm development worth $500 million over 10 years. My team's innovations were transforming how global corporations manage data across international networks. Speaking at engineering conferences about workplace innovation became a regular part of my professional life. The story resonated with audiences who recognized the universal challenge of being underestimated based on job titles rather than capabilities. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where your knowledge could make a difference, but your position made people dismiss your ideas? The corporate world is full of talented individuals whose contributions go unrecognized simply because they don't fit conventional expectations about where innovation originates. Please share your own experiences with workplace challenges in the comments below. Like this video, if you believe talent can emerge from anywhere and that organizations thrive when they listen to all voices regardless of hierarchy. Subscribe to hear more stories about ordinary people achieving extraordinary outcomes through courage and perseverance. Share this story with someone who needs encouragement to speak up when they know they can help. Thank you for joining me on this journey from administrative assistant to senior engineer. Remember that your background doesn't define your potential, and sometimes the most important voice in the room belongs to the person everyone overlooks. Until next time, keep believing in your ability to make a difference no matter what your business card says.